Hello and welcome everybody to another or new session of developing our application Notula. It's been a while since I've streamed. It's also the first stream of the new year, so I wish you all the best for the new year. But let's get to it. So what we were doing last time, we were focusing on our sessions, and I've already implemented all of the logic for Notus on sessions organization. My bad. So I've already implemented all of the organization logic. I did have to well, I didn't have to, but I did change a bit of things because I noticed that what I did with the creation was not correct either. But let's go through it. So to fetch the organizations that a person or a principal belongs to or has access to, you will see that we first use the organization user storage to find all of them, the organization user information basically, and then using those IDs we actually fetch them from the organization storage. So, and that's also the change I made because in the create, it used to be that it uses the organization service to create a new organization. No, a new organization user, my bad, here, because this is the organization service, of course. The organization user service was used to create the organization user, but it actually is not correct. Well, it was correct, it worked, but it's not a good way to do it. As you can see, I think I even deleted my entire organization user service, which is a bit annoying because now I can't show you anymore what I actually meant. I don't agree with this sonar cube, so I have to fine tune it. But so the problem was, or what is the problem actually, that your service has to do certain checks. In organization, well, you do checks. I mean, you check that there is a principal. That's a very basic check. But why? Like, that's because everybody basically allowed to make an organization. But adding a user to an organization, that's maybe something where you want to check that the user has a certain role. And that's where it becomes difficult. Because when you create an organization, you can't check that the user who wants to create the organization has the right role within that organization, because the organization doesn't exist yet. And even if the organization already existed, yeah, the user wouldn't be part of it because it's a brand new organization and there's no user of it. So in this case, you actually have to bypass the normal logic of your organization user service explicitly. So that's why in here I use the organization user storage directly, because it's a bit of a chicken of the egg problem. But normally, and how it will be in the future, is that yeah, the organization user service will actually do all the checks, saying like, okay, the principal, okay, you have a valid principal, of course. You always need a valid principal. And then with that user ID, it will do like here, a lookup for the organization users. It's like, well, give me, well, probably not all of them, but like give me now actually this user, the principals, access to this organization. And then, yeah, either there is one, none, whatever. I mean, like depending on whether you find someone or not. If you don't find anything, yeah, then you are actually not part of this organization, and it's a bit weird. The organization you also know because it will be part of the principal. Currently, not yet the case, but it will be. So you will be able to say like, yeah, you know what? That's actually a question I also had, like whether this here, the storage, whether this should work still on principal or whether this can just work on user ID. I mean, just passing in the user ID is a bit much, I feel. Just the entire principle is a bit much, especially because like I mean like it will currently only contains user ID, but it might contain more information. And technically here you're just saying like the storage is just a way to convert data. It's a bit of a layer in between. So I don't want to pass in, just I want to pass in domain objects, but also not too much information, because then you could have the whole situation that you think like, yeah, who's actually responsible for checking the role? Who's responsible for doing that? Is that the service or is it a storage gateway? So, and definitely not storage gateway. Storage gateway shouldn't really check for roles and those kind of things and whatever. And so that's why you would do it in the service. Anyway, so the service of the organization user, when you add a user to an organization, will have to check the principal and will say like, okay, give me the role. Well, basically that's what you want to know, the role of this user who wants to create it, and you have to then you check the role. If the role is not correct, then you say like a forbidden. It's like no, you can't do this. You're not allowed to. And only then you actually create it. But so the problem if you create a new organization is that you can't do that logic, and that's why I moved that part out. Well, the service didn't really do much, and that was the problem actually. The service didn't do much. I moved it out and put it in here, and so now you will see there's no dependency on the organization user service anymore, and it's straight up the storage gateway that we use. Being something, which is something actually I want to play with as well, or like investigate in the future to see whether I can make this kind of things, the storage gateway and the repository, that I can make them package scoped so nobody can access it. And so other packages would be forced to actually use my services. For organization, this is not that much of a problem because I don't have sub packages for organization users and whatever and stuff, and they kind of belong together. Otherwise, as I said, you would have the issue that if you want to create an organization and you have a package organization and you have a package organization user, yeah, then you have to open up your storage gateway and stuff. But yeah, anyway, you still have modules, of course, as well in Java, which you could theoretically use, but I haven't really used the whole module system in Java that much. Sorry. But anyway, so the logic for organization, actually, I can show it. Let me just show it. That's going to be much easier. So where are we at now? So we have backend and front end of the whole organization part is done. Oh, I have to start my container. It bothers me that there is no easy start button here. Because I mean, like this doesn't start it; it just opens it, and it's counterintuitive. I would think that you would have an easy start and stop button on your containers here, but anyway, what did I actually start? I tried to start it. It might be that I have to yes. Okay. Backend, frontend. Okay. Docker. Exec. Slash bash. What is it again? Docker exec minus I think it is. And I think then, yeah, it's the other way around. Yes. It's not a Postgres. Then I say slash bin slash bash. Okay, I'm doing something wrong with my command. Basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do this attach shell. And I thought this would work. I don't know why it's not working. Docker exec. Doesn't matter. I'll have to freshen up my commands, I guess. Okay. Okay, that's also not what I want. Go kill. Okay. Notula. And then you will see /d plus. You will see that there actually is already information here, and I actually have to drop all of it. Drop organization users. Drop table sessions. Drop table organizations. Okay, Friday scheme history, yes, okay. Why do I have to do this? Because I mean, I've changed my initialization script, my not liquibase, I use flyway. My flyway script. So now if I restart, it says like, oh, your hash of your script actually is different, so this doesn't work. Which is correct. I mean, I'm definitely not gonna say that it is wrong. It is correct. And normally you wouldn't do this, but I do it, and I'm okay, and it's okay for me to do it, because yeah, this is still in very early development. Okay, let's see if I can find the correct screen to show you. Not this one. Where is it? Is it this one? Yes, okay. So you should see the application on right now. Of course, we just destroyed our own. Well, I dropped our entire database, so all of our users will be gone. Sometimes what I do is, no, you can't do it in this case. Sometimes what I do is like I try to revert my change, but since I only have one, which is the whole initial setup of the whole script, I have to drop everything, so I can't. Very secure. We go for our good old user test and our very secure password. Let me say register. And we are registered, so we can now log in with user tests, which is, of course, not a real email address. Very, oh my god, secured login. And so now when you log in, you see, well, we have the select organization and the create organization. Probably should work on this a bit to make it a bit clearer, because this is a bit big and a bit ugly. Also, you probably want to, I don't know, maybe want to separate them a bit. But so now I can say here test, and I say create, and then you'll see that here you now have a test, which is also very ugly styled. I have to fix that as well, but that can be done later. See, Notula, and then technically normally you would to be able to click on it, and then yeah, it will log you in with that organization. Currently, it is not doing anything. It is just logging a to-do because this is not implemented yet. So that's exactly what we are doing right now. We are going to implement the logic to select or switch an organization in your session. So that's where we come here. So you're in your, well, not the session server, I guess, the session controller. And then this is what you would do. You would say, and I went for a patch action, because there as well I had to do a couple of things with the session, the whole session stuff. I had to rework this a bit, how it works, because I noticed that the way I stored session data in the DAO, so my refresh token, was not very secure, because I stored it as plain text, which is not what you should do. Refresh token should be treated like a password, and thus I've made it now that the refresh token also gets hashed. I can actually even show you that. Select, why am I root? Select star from sessions. You will see that my refresh token has been encrypted just like a password would. I'm not a security expert, so I'm not going to give too much security advice. I think this might be a bit overkill, and a regular hashing would be fine as well, especially because I have set a whole system that, yeah, your refresh token is only active until a certain day, so like a limited time. A password, on the other hand, would be valid for much longer. So in my opinion, and what I think is that if you say that a refresh token is always at most 7 days valid or 30 days valid, then as long as your hashed value takes more than that period of time to break, you should be fine. So if you go for a more simple hashing algorithm, but it still takes like a month or a year to break, yeah, then 7 days is still very fine, because by the time they would have broken it, they wouldn't be valid anymore anyway. So that's perfectly, that would be fine in my opinion. But again, I'm not a security expert, so be careful, be cautious with that advice. But I went for the exact same approach as what I did for my passwords. That did make it a bit more difficult on how to actually generate it and where to generate it, and I have to split up some objects. That's why I now also have like a session create action object, and my session info no longer has the actual refresh token part of it. Why? Because yeah, it's a well, I mean, like same as the user login, I can't give you the value because I don't know the value because it's hashed. So I can't revert it. And that's what I'm saying. Like if you would go for a different hashing algorithm, then you probably could. You could revert it easily, but I'm not so sure that would be a good idea. For the simple reason that, yeah, same as a password, you probably don't want to always load in the password. You probably don't always want to load in the refresh token because, yeah, you don't want to expose it every time. And I feel like if you have it readily available, you probably leak it more often. So now I just have the session tokens, which contains access and refresh token, and that's what you use for, well, that's what you use to return the data to the user. And which one will also be used for refreshing. And so how that kind of works is that in the service, you will now see that based on the requests, you create a new action. And yeah, and there you go to the storage gateway. You will first of all, of course, yeah, refresh. Maybe I should put this down. So you say like, okay, we have an action to create the session, and then you go to the storage gateway and you say like, okay, well, now actually create this action. Then you go to the access token service and you say like, well, I've created a session. Can you actually create me an access token for this, which doesn't do anything, it doesn't save it or anything. It just creates a token because a JOT token doesn't need to be stored, of course. And now once you have that, yeah, then you have all the information, you have the access token, you just generate it. You have the refresh token that was actually already generated in your session because that actually is persisted. And then the created session contains all the other information without the actual refresh token. So another approach would be, and that's what I'm saying, is just as information, would be to not store the refresh token, but instead rely on a JOT. So you could also say like, okay, for the access token, I create a JOT. For the refresh token, I also can create a JOT, and a JOT is a fully self-signed, self-validatable, and verifiable token. So you wouldn't need to store it. Now I would have to tell somebody, here's my refresh token, and I have to go look it up, and I have to verify that it's correct and that it matches and whatever. If it would be a JOT, then the token itself would say like, yeah, it's actually for this session ID. You might also include user. I'm not sure if that would be needed. I mean, like basically just saying session ID is enough. Then you can also say like, ah, yeah, and this token is valid until. You can have that in the JOT as well, so you don't have to keep track of here. Here you would really just have information about your session, and that's it. So that's all pretty nice. There are some caveats and some reasons why didn't I do it. First of all, because I thought this was easier, but now it turns out that maybe that's not the case. Second is that revocability, yes, with a JOT, well, a JOT you can't revoke, but the JOT you don't have to revoke, but when somebody sends, if you want to revoke it, you basically just delete the session. If the session ID does no longer exist, then, that's fine. Because you enter, you have a JOT, and it says like, oh yeah, I'm active until then, and this is my session ID, and then it will be like, oh yeah, but the only problem I have also is like, well, do you really want to rely only on session ID? What if the ID gets reused because it's used by a database? I mean, probably not gonna happen, but I mean, like, it could happen. It's a bit dangerous. Another issue is like stealing. If the JOT would get intercepted and stolen, then how do you prevent replay attacks? If I refresh this session, then the ID would remain the same. Yeah, you have nothing stored of the refresh token or whatever. So, I mean, what are you actually going to keep in there to make sure that the token does not get reused. You probably want to, well, I've seen people say approaches that you have to store then something of the token. Another thing you could do is like instead of just storing the actual refresh token, the whole token, you can have like some kind of hash or some kind of signature, some random generated bytes as well, which is what I do here. I generate some random bytes. Yeah, as I just mentioned, yeah, actually he's right about this one. This one I should kind of do, and this one is correct. I do agree with this one. Can I not fix it? Fix? Yeah, that's AI fixing it. AI is junk. Quick fix. Okay, so apparently, no, okay. Yeah, so that would be fine. And this one I have to do as well. What is this? Declare the local variable var instead based on encode string. I don't agree with this one. Encode, well, encode to string. This one I feel less fine with. New is clear. Okay. Anyway, so here, like you could say, like okay, you just generate some hash or a nonce or whatever you want to call it, and then that actually would be part of the token as well, and that you still would check. But the nonce you wouldn't have to hash or you wouldn't have to do anything with it because the nonce itself is meaningless because they can't create a jot anyway. And then if you refresh, you would actually just make sure that the nonce gets refreshed. And you're like, okay, the nonce gets changed. And then, okay, if you want to, yeah, and then if you want to do more advanced security to avoid that, because there's another level as well, is that like sometimes you want to already preliminary, like just destroy all sessions and invoke and revoke everything, or yeah, revoke like a complete session because you're afraid that somebody might have stolen something. Because if my jot or my refresh token gets stolen by somebody and he uses it to refresh it, then he can now, well, he now has the new access key, he has the new refresh key, he can now continue using that session. And when the actual user comes and says like, hey, here's my refresh token or here's my jot, then the application will say like, what? This is no longer valid. You can't use this one. Like, who the hell are you? So, and then the actual user would be logged out. And then, of course, he would log in and would create a new session. But the attacker would also be able to just keep using it and keep doing it. So that's why they say, like, well, actually, if you see a second request with the same refresh token, or if you use a job with the same nonce, then if you get that approach, you probably want to just say, like, oh, wait, but actually, this doesn't match. So, you know what? I will just destroy this session. And that's something with the nonce I think you could easily do. So maybe I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll create a ticket for it and do it and see that. Like what you can do is like, okay, somebody comes in with a jot, a valid jot, of course, and it has an ID in the nonce, but the nonce does not match the session ID. Then you're like, wait. This is probably an old value, an old jot. Can't be otherwise, because I mean, like, you're saying it is still a valid token with a valid jot because it has been signed by my server. So like, valid, it's still valid token because the active until in the token is fine. You have the nonce that is set correctly and the user and the session ID and whatever and stuff. But the nonce doesn't match with what I have in my database. So then you can say like, well, let me just revoke this entire session and just delete it. You say like, nope. Nobody can refresh this session anymore. And so I think that's might be a good approach as well. And that actually would clean up some information as well. I might still go for the approach with the whole create action, but then I don't have to hash it anymore in my storage gateway, which is what I do now. Because I'm not sure if the nonce is something then, because yeah, do I want to have it in the info or not? Maybe I can just simplify this again then and just get rid of the create action and go back to info, put it in the info object. Would it really matter that the nonce is in info objects? In the end, it's a fairly unharmless string then. Okay, but so that's the things I've done. And now I guess by doing this, I probably realize that this is not really interesting because I also, if you think about it, is this really information about the session? Well, the active until of the session, I mean, do I have to care until when a session is active? Well, probably I do. No, okay, I probably do want to have an active until session because people can clear their cache, they can lose track of their information, whatever. So their tokens might not be around anymore, and I want to be able to clear up old sessions. So maybe the jot doesn't have to be. Yeah, I think the jot also will have to be the will have to have a certain expiry. Yeah, we'll see. Honestly, but I think that's very nice that you could say like you can. Yeah, you don't have to. Well, the refresh token, I guess, is also kind of part of the session. But I think the nonce might be a very nice approach. We just store that and then actually have the jot take care of it. Yeah, I might create a ticket for that and might do it very, very, very far in the future. Anyway, so session controller. We are now going, or what we're trying to do is we are going to not refresh because the refresh has to be a separate path because that will be something like this. And that's a bit of the problem with the hashing approach is that I can no longer just say, here is my refresh token, refresh my session. Because I can't figure out for which session actually your refresh token is. If this would just be something unique, then and that's what actually the change I did in database now. Because well, I mean, like it's hashed and whatever, it doesn't have to be unique. Before this was just a randomly generated string, and my database would enforce was already always unique because somebody would have to be able to come in with a refresh token. I have to be able to find in a database and then say like, okay, actually it's for this session. Here you go. But since it's now hashed, and that might also be a reason why you want to go for the same hashing algorithm without all these parameters for all of your refresh tokens, because then you can actually still hash a refresh token and look it up like that. Whereas now with all these parameters, which are also again randomly chosen, basically, yeah, you don't really know what to do, or you don't know how to hash it because these parameters, yeah, they are here for a reason because they are unique to this refresh token and not the same for everyone. But so that means that you can't do it from the input to the output. You actually have to go from, or you have to actually have to read the output, get the parameters, and then hash the input to the output with those same parameters and see whether they match. So it's a bit more complex. And so a regular thing would be good. Regular look would be good. But then again, I mean, like you can just say like, okay, yeah, for API sessions, and then here your ID refresh, which actually kind of makes more sense. The whole refresh, I would prefer not to do it, but the problem is that yeah, with your HTTP only cookies, you just have to give a path, and you can't say like only for this operation. Otherwise, I would do like a refresh. I guess I would do an update, a put. Whereas this is a patch mapping because it's a patch. Why? Because you don't really, well, do you update? Yes, you kind of update your session. But to me, it feels not more like really updating a session. It feels, but well, it is kind of updating a session. But you don't give actual session information. Then again, you can never directly update your session. So yeah, I don't know what or how that technically would be possible. But so anyway, so this is where we are. I haven't done anything yet for this. Let me think. I think I started to write tests for it. I think yes, here. And surprisingly enough, apparently my config already was proper to block this. And that's something maybe I'm gonna double check. Web security config. Yes, okay, so it's only /API/users and /API/sessions that's permitted. Probably not correct. Maybe I'll start after 4 spaces. I use tabs. What are you talking about? This is ridiculous instead of 6. Sometimes SonarQube is really, really wrong. Indentation level is at 2. Yes, so this is one indentation, another indentation, and another indentation, because you have this one here. Specify type for out. Nobody ever does that. Is there a reason you should? Why here and not here? Why? I don't understand why he complains about these kind of things. But so anyway, so what do we want? Let me just copy paste this. So if I would do a patch, of course, I still need to have the actual thing itself. Status. What do I want to have back? Technically, I only want to have my token back. Typically, and that's also why I have here session info DTO and session info DTO. That's also why. But I think that was always the case. Session info DTO didn't contain any refresh token. So I've decided, the to string, he says like, this actually is clear that it should be a string. I don't agree. Well, kind of agree, but don't agree. Is okay because it's not created. And expect content of the JSON. Content.json. And then I want to have the same as with the create, I guess. I am going to copy it. Should I copy it? Will there ever be another case in this repository, in this controller, where we have a different response? I'm just gonna pull this out. The request, yes, that one will be different. The response, Control Shift I. It's not Control Shift I. Shortcuts. Shortcuts are so handy if you actually remember them. And here you get the response of the session and the access token. Access token is also part of. Yes, okay, so that's all fine. And why is this not unhandled type exception? Yes, okay. Add throws. Okay. No type safety. Yeah, you can complain all you want. Let's say final string expected response. I also, so there is also been an update of GitHub Copilot or something, and I don't like it because now it's always asking me to above the builder. I'm just going to see if I can keep my code a bit similarly structured. So now GitHub Copilot's like, it's just like, oh, you have to refresh or update your access to GitHub, and it actually wants to have a lot more permissions. It wants to have access to all of my repositories. It wants to have access to, like, just crazy. And I reject it. But so the annoying thing is that every time I now open Visual Studio Code, it's just like, oh, do you want to sign in with GitHub and whatever and this and that because you have to give access? And I say like, no, cancel. Get request, is that how we call it? Get request. Get body. Yeah, it's a bit, well, I guess this also get response is kind of wrong. Pom 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 pom. I have to write here. Private string get body. What will the body look like? It is a patch, and so I typically like to have. Yeah. That's definitely good. Yes. Let's do this. Yes. Is this even correctly formatted? Yeah. Okay, it is correctly formatted. Yeah. Patch. Can you not patch with a body? You should be able to patch with a body. Patch URI variables. How do I do that with a post? Pom 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 pom. Perform builder post.content. Okay. It's content and content type, of course, I have to set as well. Not a body. Dot content, and then I say body, and I say content type, media type, what's application JSON. Null type safety, like this is like I mean like SonarCube. I'm not sure what. Maybe there's something wrong with the plugin, or maybe there's something else wrong. But I mean, first of all, this can never be null. Null type safety. Oh, you have to make sure it's not null. This cannot be null. I mean, like I literally just give a static string. This can never be null. This here as well. How can this ever be null? I think it's just because they've used annotations or something in there. At non-null media type. I don't know which at non-null this actually is, but it's really annoying, this thing. So yeah, that's something I still have to do. I have to fix it. Anyway, so it's a patch. You will notice that I've actually not called this patch, which normally I would. Normally I would call this like the actual operation I'm doing. The problem is that a patch, or what I do is a patch is actually for more than just one. So in this case as well, my patch operation, well, I might have other patches in the future. And with that being said, yeah, that means that I can't just stick to one. That's also why I went for. I don't have it. I don't have any of it yet. But yeah, so you have the create session DTO, which is really a create one, I guess. But what I am going to do is I am going to do a session action DTO. And technically, so you would be the session create action would be one of those, and this can be a record. It cannot be a record because it has to be a sealed class. Because I'm going to use the what's it called again? At Jackson. Yeah, no, I have to look it up. Permits, and then I have to here switch organization DTO. But I'm probably gonna call this session switch organization. Session switch organization DTO. So your action, and you have session action, and you have session. The action is actually switch organization. So session switch organization DTO. So here it would be, maybe I should just drop the action in the name, session create, and that's your action. Create is your action. Switch organization is your action. Otherwise, I have to be switch organization action, which is ridiculous. and then here you have a new file, which is session switch or organization DTO Java. And this extends session action DTO. Cannot be resolved to a type. Interesting. Probably because of this. Final, sealed, or non-okay. Which actually makes me think, can I? No, I can't. I was going to say, can I create this record? But it's impossible because record classes already extend from the record base class. Can I create an interface out of this? But I have to look up Jackson inheritance. There is a way to do it, and I've done it many times, but I keep forgetting how to do it. You have like an annotation for it. That's what I know. JSON sub types. I thought you had more options. Let me double check. I thought you could type fill value name. I thought you had more options. JSON, is it the JSON type info? I think so. Include as property. How else would you include it? Deduction. Oh, that's so bad. Simple name at type. As property. Wrapper objects are really bad. Wrapper arrays even worse. External property. What the hell is that? Existing property. Nah. Okay, use, include, yes. Default impl, visible. I think property, technically I don't have to do, I think. Yeah, anyway. So this means that my object here, it will have like a type. Okay, well. And then here I'm gonna do like switch. Something like this maybe. Something like this. What do you think about it? Type, switch organization. I don't know why I want to delete that, because that would be a very bad idea to delete it. I'm just not so sure whether I want to go for the uppercase because it's the only thing that would be uppercase then in this whole object. But then it makes it clear that it actually is an enum. It kind of is an enum, although it's not very clear that it's an enum. I could make an enum out of it. I mean, like technically, I also could just do a variable. I could say 0, 1, 2. I mean, not very difficult. The only problem I have is that this would be the only thing because you have type, and then here you would have organization ID, and then indeed, for instance, I would say like 2. I would have to parameterize this, of course. I'm already going to do that. Final test organization, and then I say here is %t formatted organization get ID. It actually is a pretty smart autocomplete, and like it does know how to do things. But sometimes if it has to present a lot of code, then it's just really ridiculous. So Edward Christensen, which session are you actually in? None. Okay, you're not part of any organization because my test session simply doesn't have. Okay, and here I'm gonna say final test organization equals the Acme test organization. I don't think I have the Acme. I would say Sporer. So here you are not logged in, and then he actually wants to log in. I should probably fix or update that a bit, but okay, anyway. Expected response. What is the expected response? The response, yeah, with the test session. This session is not correct, I guess. Well, no, actually, it doesn't matter because it doesn't contain any. Well, no, okay, so yeah, okay. This will now have to contain actually. No, actually, no, it's completely fine. This your session information you get back just contains your ID, your active until, and your access token. It doesn't contain any more information. It's the access token that we'll have updated. So that one I might have to fix. The expected response saying here session and access token, because that will be where it comes from, and that will be more like organization building. Let's see when session service dot switch. Well, yeah, that's probably the question as well. Like, do I want to do it like this or not? That's something I will think about, because in the past I have opted to not have like session service switch organization, whatever, was like session service dot apply or perform, and then you just give in the action, because that's basically what you have here. I have a session action DTO. Or a session action, which I now map to something else, and then I say like, well, apply it, and then yeah, the switch organization will simply do it. The problem is that this is not just a simple patch or an update of the object itself. So maybe this whole logic is actually not necessary. I mean, what am I saying? Like, typically you want to, if you have an object, for instance, what I've done in the past, where you have an election, sometimes you want to update the start time, or you want to start the election. Okay, then what do you do? Well, start is actually not a resource, it's an action I want to do. So I have a patch, and there I say like, which meets my action, I say start. Okay, and then the start will trigger stuff and really update the actual object. In here, we are not. Well, in here we also are, of course, we are also doing it. We are also updating the actual section. No, maybe I do want to do it like this. That's definitely not a problem. I'm just thinking like, well, how about you do it permissions and whatever and stuff? No, the problem is that here is more difficult because I can't just allow you to switch to any organization you like, and my session cannot verify it. This has to be verified by the service. So this is not a way to do it. But as I said with the election, it definitely was the way to do it, because there it's all information that depends only on the actual information of your election. You want to start an election, stop an election, reset an election, whatever. I mean, like, I don't know what kind of other operations I had back then. But then it was easy, and you don't really have to specify exact moments, but you can just start, stop, and then you still have a lot of logic in your actual uh, in your objects. But yeah, so that's in here. Oh, in here, I guess that's not really the way to do. So I think I'm just gonna regular update then. So instead of a patch, I'm gonna say a put mapping, and then I am session info DTO. No, I'm gonna go for a self session action DTO and a session switch organization DTO, which then extends. I'm just gonna call this session update DTO, and doesn't have to be final anymore. And then here, the only thing in here actually is your private final long organization ID. And then in here, we don't have this, we just have organization ID, and that's it. So in the service, then we definitely will have it. So here I just call this update, and which, I mean, like, of course, it's only organization ID. Now let me think. Session info DTO. I've created a record of it. Yes, that's what I did. Record. I was thinking, like, did I create the whole constructors myself? Or did I use Lombok? Because typically I'm not a fan of Lombok. But yeah, I kind of forgot that this is perfectly fine. Put mapping, why it isn't working? Import put mapping, okay, consumes application, yes. Yeah, indeed, this is not patch, but like an update. And then I have here add valid, so I will do add valid, but there's no final session update. It's request to I call it request here. So I don't really have anything to validate, but I'm just gonna add valid already just in case. I don't think it's gonna be too much of a bottleneck or it's gonna cause any issues. Bind template to a method parameter. Of course, add request param final long ID. Okay. Voila. What is he still complaining about? Is the request param not the correct one? It's path param. It's path param. It is not path param. No, it's not path param. It is request param. That's how they call it. Yeah, request body, request param. Yeah. What the hell is your problem? The path variable. Okay. It's path variable. All these annotations, which all sound and very, very similar. Request param. I think the request param is the one behind the question mark. I don't know what actually a path was it that I used. Path param, I think. No, it's not path param. Path. I have the request parameter, and I don't know. So path variable, which kind of makes sense that it's called the path variable because it's actually the request and the actual path. Yeah. Okay. Pom pom pom. So here, what do I have to change? Not patch, but this will be a put. Whoop. That should be fine. Put. And then update. Let's see. Of course, this one will fail. Actually, this one is, yeah, this one will fail because of the content. I was going to say, like, this one will probably not fail. illegal state exception even. An unparsable JSON string. Perfect. What's unparsable about it? Organization ID, %d, and I use organization get ID, so that should be fine. I think it is the response that is causing the issue. And I think if you go to where I thought I could see it somewhere. Output problems debug. Probably here somewhere it is. Here, yes. It's because my Spring Boot application is running. I'm not sure why I have two. This must have been an old one. Okay, now if yeah, okay, fine. Very, very smart. So if you go to output, then no, not output. What was it? Debug console? Yes, debug console. And then if you here check the update method, you will actually see what the response is. And it says status 200, and it says body equals empty. And of course, that is not a parsable string. So that's why the issue is there. Session update DTO. Yeah, and I'm still thinking about whether I should rename this or not. Session create action, because here I've just named it session update, session info. I also call it create session DTO. Then should I call this update session DTO? But I have a session create action. No, okay, no. I'm gonna stick to one naming scheme. I'm gonna start everything with session. Why? Because that makes it more easy to find everything of session. Session update DTO. And then I'm gonna rename this to session create DTO. And then I have to go to the test, of course, go to test. There is no test, of course, for this. The DTOs, my DTOs don't have tests, if I remember correctly. Why would you test a DTO? Create user is the same then. What else do I have? Create organization, I guess. The create organization does sound more like with the create in front. Okay, maybe I should undo this for now. Yes, and I will clean that up later. I'll clean it up later, but this one definitely, because this is something new, I am going to remove the action. I'm going to drop the action from it. Session create. Go to tests. Session create test. Okay. I will definitely rename all of my other stuff as well. Session create action, session create action test, session create test. And then I can have next to my session create, I can do a new file and session update. My create is a yes. Good question. Session update. At getter, and then I have here a private file organization ID, I guess, and that's all for now. Yeah, this one you can only create from user info. Which, I mean, like, yeah, this will be changed anyway. This might even become principal. Because in the future, well, no, not user info. This is going to be organization user. info, I guess, because you can't do it from principal. Principal wouldn't work because yeah. Okay, but this might completely go away and just become in again session info, I guess. If well, eventually if I do the nonce, I might remove the whole split. Then again, the nonce I probably don't want to make it public and don't want to make it available. And then again, I mean, like that's the whole DTO mapping, I guess. But okay, session updates. That's what I have, and then I have here this go to test tune 5 that I need to have. How come I don't have DTO tests actually? Do I not have DTO tests? They have the whole 2BDO. They should have tests. I have a create session DTO test. Probably because I changed the name in such a way you can't find it anymore. Oh, that's ridiculous. Okay, anyway. Create session DTO can go away. Session update DTO tests, put it there. And then I copy paste this. This is session update DTO of session.getID. And then I say to BDO, and then I say BDO.get organization ID is equal to session.get session update as organization ID. Oh my god. Test organization dot Explorer will take this can actually all go away. Interesting enough. And then I say here organization dot get ID to BTO, yes, and then whoop, get organization, get password gone, get organization ID. This has to be capital I, which I now see is a mistake as well. And this just becomes regular organization ID. No, because wait, my BDO has gets, but my BDO is not user login. That's session update. And then here I just have to add a public session update to BDO. Et voila, let's test it. Continue. Apparently there are issues. Why are there issues? Yeah, okay, those are just files that have not been updated. My whole shenanigans of renaming, undo renaming. So that's fine. Okay, so this is now fully implemented, and normally this should, well, this kind of works already, the controller, except then of course it doesn't do anything. So then here I say run organization service dot. I think they also just have create, yeah, just update, and then I say here. I think this will be an arg that situation. Yeah, arg that. How did I name it in there? Naming, I want to keep it consistent, but I never can find arg that login. I've called it there. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Update. Assert it and equal to yes, and of course yes. This method doesn't exist yet, so we're gonna go to our session service. And the only thing we do here is public session info updates final. This is even too much. I say here throw new not implemented, is that not? How come this doesn't have session info yet? It's interesting that this doesn't have any session info. Syntax error. When then return info. Session info, and then in the controller where I have the info. How did I do that here? I think it was a mock that I returned. No, it's a real object. Does that make sense? Well, it kind of does make sense because you use the new constructor from this object. Well, I could create a mock of it and just say when this, when that. But it feels more work than actually creating a real object. So, okay. Okay, final session info equals organization is equals session info. So this will now just return the regular info of this session. I don't think, can I set anything? I don't think I can even set anything on this. Nope. So I can't set the wait. Do I want session info? I want a session info DTO because I need to give him a new access token. The access token is not part of my session info, of course. Wait, how? The access token is not part of my session info, which makes sense because it's not stored in the database. But I need to be able to return. So I have to return session tokens. That's what I have to do. So then in here, I will return tokens. This is session tokens equals, and I'm going to copy paste it from above. The nice thing is that I can now just say like, yeah, well, session info, and I have access token, which I can update. Private static final string. Do I actually even care? Not really, do I? I mean, like, where else would this information come from? Expected response. My expected response is then exactly the same as here, which is ID, access token, and active until. Yes. Formatted. Why is this so ugly formatted? Why is this on the same line? This should. I think I should extract this to like session ID, access token, and active until string, separate thing, and then I can probably put it on one line. This is what I don't like about this thingy with text blocks and whatever. Text blocks are nice, but as soon as you need variables in them, they can become a bit. Actually, the %d, does it even work? That's actually a good question. Does that work? %d. Why do I %s in here? Then it should also be %d. Okay, let's run everything again because now I've changed something everywhere. This is still not going to work because my controller doesn't actually call it. Yes, okay, that's correct. So my session controller now has to do session service dot update session update. Aha, this actually is also a very interesting part. And I'm going to wrap it up here because my session update DTO doesn't contain the ID of my session, which is fine. It doesn't need to because my session ID is part of my path. But of course, as soon as I give it onto the service and I say like, yeah, update, yeah, this one, I have to say like which ID I have to update. So my session update object actually should contain my session ID. Otherwise, he has no idea about which session it actually is about. And that's actually also a nice thing where you can, well, where you see that actually splitting your objects is a very nice way. The session create, for instance, he didn't have any. Of course, that makes sense because he might create session DTO. But so you can see that actually your DTO can be completely different from your actual business domain object. You can make more or less, whatever. You can do things like, I mean, the tokens object, for instance, you see like, yeah, this is actually not even mapped. You just have the info here. Whether you call it info or tokens, whatever, doesn't matter. Here you have session info, which, yeah. The thing is that actually this session info does map to this session info, but the tokens was required to also do the access token as a return. And here as well, I mean, like you have a session update DTO where you say like you only have organization ID, but the actual session update, this one actually will also need, I know, non ID. Session update, maybe I should just call it session ID. I'm going to call it session ID, that makes more sense. Get session ID. And I'm actually thinking to also make this into a record class. Why did I not do that with this one? You don't need to update anything. It can be perfectly fine. This session info you will probably want to update because yeah, you have the organization, yeah, because you know your organization ID and whatever and stuff, and yeah, fine. Which makes me wonder how is this even going to map to? Yeah, no, I think that's fine because you can map it differently. Yeah. Okay, so I'm actually going to make a record class out of this. Records all because a session update is something that you only request. No need to ever actually update anything. And then you can do whoop, and this can go away. I don't need to have anything, it's just a data object. This is a session ID, this is organization ID, and that's all perfectly fine. And we run it again, and okay. Update this. Of course, this is not going to work yet. The 2BDO on a session update DTO, which is probably this code will now fail because it is like, oh, I have to give a thingy. So I'm for quick stuff. I'm gonna do just this. But so this means that actually my DTO itself can no longer fully do the 2BDO without further information. Session update. Yes, and I thought about this as well. Like whether you would ever be allowed to switch from being into an organization to just out of an organization. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think I want to. I don't want people to say like, I want to go in my Notula organization. Now I want to just leave my Notula organization. I mean, like, then you're not part of any organization, so you wouldn't really be able to use the application or anything. I don't think that's ever really required. I think you would only switch to a different organization if you have multiple organizations, of course, or just log out. I don't think I ever want to support the whole option, as in, like, yeah, the whole thing of like you haven't selected an organization is something I also want to avoid. There will be a lot more work in the future to make sure that, yeah, when you log in, you only have one organization, you automatically get logged in into that organization. If you have multiple organizations in the far future, I might add an option where you say like, well, yeah, but this is for, I can set a default organization, so you're automatically logged into the default organization as well. So you don't really see the whole, so you don't have the whole situation where you're like, well, you're not really part of any organizations yet. So yeah, that's what I want to avoid. But beyond that, this is a to-do. But yeah, I mean, like, I know it will be a to-do because my test will fail. That's a nice thing about having the tests. It's like, it will fail, I can make it fail, but at the same time, yeah, well, at the same time, this will also fail because my update session ID is equal to session get ID is going to fail because my controller, my actual controller is gonna not work. So first of all, do I need to check the principal? Yes, I need the principal as well. Is it already part of, yeah, base control? Okay, get so I say final principal equals get principal. This is important for the simple reason that my updates will actually do my principal as well. So I have to say here, oh yeah, which session I already have. Which session, this is an annotation I wrote to make it a bit more easier. And I think this takes the test user of my session, yes. So, and I can say, the annoying thing is I can't take the session because this is not an enum value and whatever. Actually, it's an enum value. Anyway, it would complain if I used this session, even though it's probably static final and whatever, and like, I have to look into that because I think that's much easier and much nicer if I can just say, oh yeah, I actually want to use this session here. But I can say something like session, even if it's like session controller test.session. What the hell kind of fix are you suggesting? The problem is that now it says like, oh, information session must be an enum constant expression. This is definitely an enum constant, but he just doesn't realize it. Too bad. So I'm a bit stuck with like duplicating the information, which is really annoying. But okay, so this here principle, because I will do something as in like request.toBDO final session update. Did I go just and then here I say principal update, and then this is important that we also update this to say final principal. Okay, and let's check with the organization service that it's similar organization service, so my style remains consistent. Of course, the require not node is not there yet, but then you'll see it's principal and then the actual objects Yes. And in the controller, you will see the same. I get the principal, and then I have a new line. Then I make the request. Here I've done it in line. I guess I could do that too. Request to video. Even though I will, of course, have to offer more information. And then here I say final. And then I'm here again. Session tokens. Session, I guess. Now it doesn't fit on one line anymore. Final. Session update equals history. I think I do prefer to actually like avoid too much chaining. Not only because it keeps your lines, typically it keeps your lines smaller, but also because why is it not? Time can convert from the session tokens to yeah. Ah no, right, it isn't in session info DTO. I just have to map it back here. I think that's how I want to do it now. That's not how I did it here either. Well, maybe it does belong here. You get your principal and whatever, then you do all the thing to actually do your get your result, and then you return the result. I was thinking this is the block where you get the actual thingy and then you map it back. This is part of the mapping, I guess. So that's problems that you do more stuff here, and yeah, this is a big one. Okay, so this should almost match. The only thing I have to say here is equal principal, and then I have here say, do I already have? Does my session not have a principal method? Info. Definitely here I do it. How have I done it in the other controllers? Organization, my organization controller just definitely has to do it. How did I do it here? Principal here. User.principal. Yes, this was one of the. How can my test user be the principal? This doesn't make much sense. This will have to move as well. Okay, but for the time being, I guess I can just say user not principal. Okay, fix it. And then if I run this, it's still gonna fail because my because of this, my update, this is not gonna match. See, 500 different of 200. But that's probably because my return type is not correct. But if I eliminate this, then ta-da, it works. So I'm gonna put it back because it has to fail my test because my logic is not correct yet. And then we have basically implemented most of it, and then we just have to make sure that we implement the not found as well. Let me check whether there is something else I've done. Single, multiple, doesn't care, none, unauthorized I've done. Not found is not even part of not found because on a get all there can be cannot be, can it unauthorized server error. Here I have just a server error. Is internal server error. Yeah, it's a bit ridiculous as well. Why does this one have a server error? On the other hand, is it also not a bit ridiculous that I have to check these kind of things? That actually returns like an internal server error when you know that actually the session controller, the controller itself doesn't do anything. Like I mean, my base controller doesn't handle it. I mean, just saying that's yeah, it's my HTTP exception handler that takes care of it. Then again, of course, you want to make sure that your HTTP exception handler is properly attached to all of your controllers. So is the responsibility of the controller? On the one hand, I think yes, because it's just important that it always checks it, but I don't want to write like, yeah, oh, when this throws a runtime exception or something else, yeah, it's an internal server error. If this happens, like blah blah blah, then this happens, and if this, then this and this, which is something you don't see in the code. So either I create like an endpoint test, which I can easily implement everywhere, which is going to be difficult because which service are you going to use? Which method are you going to use? This needs to be mocked and stopped and whatever, and like server error, yeah, then you have to throw a runtime exception or something. Not found, then you have to throw different exceptions. All just to test this logic. No, not this logic. This logic, I mean, like, this is Spring's responsibility basically, not mine. I mean, like, yes, it's my application, I guess I want to check it, but I feel like this is actually getting rather stupid. So the not found, I mean, like saying that it's a 404, even that is something that's actually quite stupid. Where did I put it? So I'm gonna just delete this test. Why is that? Because I mean, like then I have to throw an exception, and there's no guarantee that that's actually the exception that will be thrown by my service. So how can I know? I mean, my service doesn't implement any of it, so these are just things I guess that you have to do yourself manually. I mean, currently my exception handling is not very good anyway. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it here. The session was a bit long again. I will see you again next time, maybe tomorrow. Bye.